Magic Treehouse, number 11, Lions at Lunchtime by Mary Pope Osborne, Chapter 7. Hi there. The forest was cooler than the sunny plains. It was filled with shadows and bird calls. "Where are you?" Jack called. "Here," said Annie. He found her in a thick glade. Bright rays streamed between the trees. Green leaves and vines swayed in the dappled light. The little gray bird sat in a tree, twittering at them. "Yuck, what's that?" said Annie, and she pointed at a round brown thing hanging from a low branch. Bees buzzed around it. "If that's her nest, it's a pretty weird nest," said Annie. "That's not a nest," said Jack. "It's a beehive. Don't you see the bees?" "Yikes," said Annie, and she stepped back from the tree. But the little bird darted at the beehive and pecked at it. "What's she doing?" said Annie. The bird kept pecking at the hive. "I don't know. Maybe she's as nuts as you," said Jack. "Look her up in the book," said Annie. "See if it says she's nuts." "Are you kidding?" said Jack. "That nutty bird isn't going to be in this book. Just look." Jack opened his Africa book. He kept turning the pages, and just as he thought, there was no gray bird in the book. "Forget it," he said. "Keep looking," said Annie. Jack turned one more page, and there it was, a little gray bird, a beehive, and a tall painted warrior with a spear. "I don't believe this," said Jack. And then he read aloud. "This bird is called a honey guide. It's both a friend and a helper to the Maasai people, an African tribe known for their fierce fighting skills and bravery." "Hi, honey guide," Annie called to the bird. "I knew you were important." Jack kept reading. "The honey guide leads a Maasai tribesperson to a beehive. The bird waits for him or her to scatter the bees and take the honey, and then the bird feasts on the honeycomb." "That's cool," said Jack. "They work together, like the zebras and the wildebeests and the gazelles." "Yeah," said Annie, "and she wants us to be her helpers. We have to scatter the bees and leave her the honeycomb." "How do we do that?" said Jack, and he looked back at the books. It didn't say how. "Well, maybe we could wave those weeds at them," said Annie, and she pointed to some bright green plants that looked like giant fans. Jack put his book and his backpack down. He and Annie pulled up the weeds. They waved them near the tree, and the bees scattered. Next, Jack grabbed the tree branch and jiggled it. The hive fell to the ground and broke open. Annie stooped and stuck her finger into the gold and honeycomb. "Yummy," she said when she tasted the honey. "Try it." Jack stuck his finger in the honeycomb. He licked off the golden honey. It was the sweetest honey he had ever tasted. "Now the honey guide can get her honeycomb," said Annie. "Yeah, but she'd better hurry before the bees come back," said Jack. "It's weird," said Annie. "Honey's so sweet and so good, but to get it, you have to go past a lot of dangerous bees." "Oh, man," said Jack. "That's it." "What's that?" said Annie. Jack said Morgan's riddle. "I'm the color of gold and as sweet as can be. But beware of the danger that's all around me. What am I?" "I get it," said Annie. "Honey." "Honey," said Jack, nodding and smiling. "That's it. We've answered Morgan's riddle. Let's go home." And Jack stood up to leave. He gasped. Standing in the shadows was a tall man with a spear and a curved sword hanging from his belt. His face was painted in fierce, bright colors, and Jack knew at once what he was: a Maasai warrior. "Hi there," said Annie in a very small voice. Chapter 8. Yum. The warrior stared back at Jack and Annie. "We were helping one of your honey guides," said Annie. The warrior was as still as a statue. "We didn't mean to steal anything," Jack said. "In fact, it's all yours. We've had enough." "Lots of good honey still there," said Annie, smiling. The warrior narrowed his eyes. "Is he angry?" Jack wondered. "I'm sorry if we're trespassing," said Jack. "We come in peace. In fact, we bring gifts." And he picked up his backpack and held it out to the warrior. The warrior still didn't move. This? Jack held up his book. Nothing. Jack reached into his pack. He pulled out the big jar of peanut butter. Peanut butter! He pulled out the loaf of bread. Bread! Hey! Hey! How about a peanut butter and honey sandwich? Yum, said Annie, watching the warrior. The warrior stared at the food. We'll show you, said Jack. As Jack unwrapped the bread, his hands shook. Annie opened the jar. We don't have anything to spread it with, she said. Use your fingers, said Jack. Excuse me, said the warrior. Excuse me, said Annie to the warrior. I have to use my fingers. But they're pretty clean. An elephant just do it, Annie, said Jack. Okay. And she spread the peanut butter onto a slice of bread with her fingers. At the same time, Jack spread the honey from the beehive on another slice. Jack and Annie put their slices of bread together. Ta-da! Said Annie, handing the sandwich to the warrior. The warrior took the sandwich but he didn't eat it. He just looked at it. Let's make sandwiches for us too, said Jack, so he doesn't have to eat alone. So they quickly made 2 more sandwiches. See, like this, said Annie, and she bit into her sandwich. Yum. Jack took a bite too. He said, it really was good. Finally, the warrior bit into his sandwich. He chewed slowly. This is called a picnic, said Annie. They ate their sandwiches in silence, and when they finished, Jack screwed the lid back on the peanut butter jar. Not bad, huh? The warrior smiled. He had a kind, dignified smile, and Jack and Annie smiled back at him. And then the warrior turned gracefully and vanished into the trees. Oh, man, said Jack. Part of him wanted to follow the silent warrior through the shadowy forest. Ready? Annie said softly, and Jack nodded. Annie started to go. Wait, Jack said. He put away the peanut butter and the bread. We're going back to the treehouse, right? We're not going to do anything silly, like trying to rescue or chase birds. Those things aren't silly, said Annie. And don't forget, that bird gave us the answer to the riddle. Oh, right, said Jack. He looked up at the little honey guide. She was on the ground pecking at the honeycomb. Thanks, Jack said to the bird. Have a good feast, said Annie. And Jack put on his pack, and then he and Annie started out of the forest. When they passed the pond, they saw the elephant still splashing in the water. He lifted his trunk. He seemed to be waving at them. See ya, Annie shouted, waving back. They rounded the bend in the river and then started through the tall grass. As they walked back towards the treehouse, they saw the wildebeests in the distance. There were still some crossing the river, and they saw a family of zebras grazing together. They saw lone giraffes walking from tree to tree eating the leaves. And they saw a bunch of lions sleeping in the shade of a tree. The same tree that the tree house was in. Whoops, said Annie, and Jack's heart gave a leap. So, there they are, he said.